All right, welcome everybody. Um, we are recording this so that we can put it up on the internet and share it with people who can't make it today. And so just want to remind you of that we are recording. You cannot unmute yourself. That is because of the fact that we are doing this in a webinar type format. But we do welcome questions being typed in the chat, and we will attempt to answer them either today or through a future communication. And so I will have us continue forward in our presentation to our next slide. All right, we are meeting here today and we want to root ourselves in our mission, which is to enable and inspire our diverse student body to achieve academic excellence and to make positive contributions to our world using our 4 E's. You want to click through those. Excellence, equity, engagement, and enrichment. Thank you. Next slide. All right, we are meeting here today. We're going to provide answers about the process and explain employee rights during the process. Unfortunately, we will not be able to answer everyone's individual scenario questions today, but we will tell you how to get in contact with people who can help you to understand your personal scenario. Next slide. So I am Samantha Tobias Espinoza, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and I'm joined by two others who are going to help me present today. So Erin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Erin Arenas. I'm the Executive Director for Classified Personnel for the Personnel Commission.
And Alex? Sarah, he may need to be unmuted.
There we
There we go.
go. Hey, Alex Billett, Director of Human Resources.
Thank you. All right, next slide. And our union partners, I know I saw our local 21 leadership here. I'm not sure if our BCCE leadership is also here, but we have worked on this presentation and are continuing to work together with our union partners in terms of making sure that employees have all the information they need going through this process. Next slide. Next slide. All right, the why. So why are we going through this process? Next slide. Reduction in force or layoffs or pink slips or March 15th notices are all the same thing. And they all have to do with the fact that the district needs to make some changes to its budget. And part of the reason why these notices are required is because about 80% of our budget is people. We spend 80% of our budget on humans. And so unfortunately, we have to go through this process in terms of reducing our force, meaning reducing the amount of people that we pay for on an annual basis to make sure that we're able to stay within our means of our budget. Next slide. So what is the legal requirement that we're talking about? So Ed Code 45117 says that no later than March 15th, and before a classified employee is given notice that their services will not be needed for the next year due to a lack of work or lack of funds, the school board must give written notice to the employees prior, and that notice has to be done to make sure that the employees are informed of their rights and any reemployment rights, and to make sure that everybody gets the notice. So this is the law that requires this. It used to be that classified employees got a 60-day notice, but it was changed. I think it's now 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, to this March 15th date to match what teachers get. And so the other big change that happened when we used to do 60-day notices is people only got notices if the district had pretty much already made up the decision of what positions they needed to cut. Now, because we have to do March 15th, we do a lot of potential notices. So all of the notices that went out that you received from the March 15th notices are all potential, because we have to notice people ahead of time and then work through making the decisions in the next couple of months. Next slide. And part of the reason why we are here is because the district has a budget balancing target. So we are working towards making sure that our budget stays positive and that we can continue to pay our bills, and continue to move forward. And unfortunately, the state in general has not fully funded education the way it should. And so every district around us, including Berkeley Unified, has had to make some cuts and is working on making these kind of decisions. Next. So when do we have to do all this? Next slide. So in January, the governor puts out their budget. And then in late February, early March, school districts have to do a board resolution to reduce certificated and classified service if they're going to. And then no later than March 15th, preliminary layoff notices have to be served. And then once that all happens, then we have a period of time, April and into May. On or before May 7th, an administrative law judge holds hearings for people who request them who have gotten layoff notices. And then before May 15th, final notices are served. At the same time, May 14th is when the governor's budget gets what's called the May revision, which is a revision of what the governor thought the budget was in January in May. But the final budget actually doesn't get created and enacted until July 1. So we still have a time period after the final notices go out where we still have to finish with the budget and wait for the state to actually come up with their budget. So this all happens before the budget actually even gets finalized. And it's unfortunate that these timelines don't work well together. But that is the reality of what we have to deal with in education, every school district. Next slide. So again, by March 15th, we give preliminary layoff notices, sometimes referred to as pink slips. The district notifies the employees that their services may not be required for the next year. But before May 15th, we have to do final layoff notices. So the school board makes its final decision, and then we notify the affected employees. Those layoffs then become effective on June 30th, or whatever the last day of work in that month is for those employees. So their positions don't continue into the next fiscal year. Next slide. All right, so what are these notices? Next slide. And could you click a couple times? All right, so March 15th notices are an attempt to protect employees in education by providing advance notice of the possibility of layoff or a change in their FTE. And it's to give you enough notice given that education budgets are not confirmed or approved until late May or June. It's a practice used across all school districts as it is required by law. What they are not related to job performance. They have nothing to do with any individual's job performance. They are also not final notices of layoff or reassignment until the board votes in May. The vote in May then authorizes us to provide final notifications that need to be sent to the employee by May 14th. So again, the notices that you've received at this point are preliminary and they do not reflect a final decision, and actions will only become final when a May 15th notice is issued and received by an employee. Next. So what is the rationale? Why do we do these notices? And what is legally allowed? So they are due to a lack of work or funds. They are a preliminary notice of recommendation by March 15th and a final notice by May 14th. What does this mean? What are the implications? So it must only be based on a lack of work or funds. It can't be based on an employee's performance. It can't be based on a dislike for the person or a personality conflict. It can't be based on the decision that we just want to make changes. It has to be based on lack of work or funds. They can be rescinded all the way up until May 14th. Employees have hearing rights, which we'll get more into later in this presentation. And more people are noticed than positions are on the actual resolution due to the potential of bumping. And reductions can be negotiated with union leadership in lieu of layoffs. So we can negotiate, instead of cutting the whole position, reducing the size of the position. So maybe making it from a 1.0 position to a 0.8 position, but that has to be negotiated with the union leadership through this process over the next couple of months. Next, who gets these notices? And I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
Okay, thanks, Sam. So now we'll walk through sort of how these notifications are made. So as we previously discussed, the district identifies the need based on a lack of work or lack of funds, and then identifies those positions, and those are included in the root resolution that this year was approved by the board on March 4th. So while the board resolution identified those positions by school site or department, in this next process, positions are grouped by job classification. So current employee seniority is applied within that classification. So that way we can determine employees with the most seniority in the affected classifications, and then those with less seniority in a classification may be impacted first. Next slide. So it's important to understand seniority and bumping. So seniority is based on your hire date in your current classification and determines the order of layoffs. It's not the same as your district seniority, which may come into play if an employee has the exact same seniority date as another employee in the same classification. But we're first looking at the seniority date in your current classification. And then bumping means that a more senior employee may displace or bump a less senior employee within the same classification. Employees may only bump into a different classification if they have previously held seniority in that classification. And then this also helps explain why some employees receive a March 15th notice, even if their specific position is not identified in the board resolution, because they may be impacted through the bumping process. So, for example, a school admin 2 may have received a March 15th notice. That position wasn't in the board resolution, but a budget analyst 2 was listed. And the budget analyst with the least seniority held seniority as a school admin 2, and therefore is notified that they could bump into the school admin 2 position if there are no vacancies, or bump into another position if there are no vacancies. So ultimately, this process follows strict rules based on classification and seniority, and it's designed to ensure that the employees with more seniority have the opportunity to remain employed. Next slide. So now we're going to discuss notices, like how are these notices sent, what kind of notices you will receive. So there are about 4 different types of March 15th notices, and each employee will receive a notice. So the first is it's like what we call a bump letter, and it means your position is identified in the resolution, and you have bumping rights in your current or your prior classification. Another notice will be going to employees whose positions were identified in the resolution, and because they don't have enough seniority in their classification or they've never held seniority in another classification, they do not have bumping rights. And then another notice will go out to employees who may be displaced due to another employee's bump. So this position was not on the resolution, but another employee with more seniority can bump them. However, this employee also then has bumping rights. And so then the last notice is similar to the previous where an employee is displaced, but this employee does not have bumping rights into another classification. So the notice that you receive will determine the options available to you moving forward. So next we'll walk through those options and what they may look like depending on the notice that you receive. Next slide, please. So based on the notice you receive, you may be provided with one or more of the following options. So if you have bumping rights in your current classification, you will first be considered for a vacant position at your current FTE. And if no vacancy is available, you would then bump the least senior employee in your classification. If you have previously held another classification and have seniority in it, you may have bumpy rights into that classification. If no vacancy is available, you would then bump the least senior employee in that classification. Then also some employees may be considered for assignment into a vacant position in a different classification at an equal or lower salary range, even if they have not previously held that classification. This would be considered if they meet the minimum qualifications, that position. And in addition to that, employees may also have the option to retire in lieu of layoff or accept the layoff and be placed on the 39-month reemployment list. So all options available to you will be included in your notice, and we just ask that you review them carefully and check all options you would like to be considered for. This doesn't mean that you are locked into one choice, because as this process progresses and after final layoffs have been approved by the board, you may prefer one option over the other, and we can definitely discuss that at a future date. So again, those options that are available to you will depend on your classification and on your seniority, and your specific letter will outline which options apply to you. Again, if you have any questions regarding a specific option mentioned in your letter, you can definitely reach out to me. So, and then next slide, please. So this is just to recap on some important deadlines and next steps if you did receive a notice. So all employees have the right to request a hearing. And if you received the bumping rights form, you will need to review those carefully, indicate all of your preferences, and then both the hearing requests and the bumping forms are now due March 26th. And they should all be submitted via email to hr@berkeley.net. If you have any trouble getting those sent over, please reach out to us as well. We can assist you with that. Employees also have the opportunity they'll have the opportunity to meet with me in an informal conference in May. And you will be more than welcome to have a union representative present during that meeting. These conferences are scheduled in May because over the next several weeks, as funding is secured, there may be rescissions and employees may separate, they may resign or transfer to their positions. Also, the board will make final decisions regarding layoffs, and final notices will be issued before May 15th. So because of this, the options available to employees may continue to change during this time, so it is best to wait until final notices are issued before holding those individual conference so we can get really specific about the options. And so if you would like to schedule that conference, please contact Sarah Goodwin at her email address, sarahgoodwin@berkeley.net. But again, know that you are more than welcome to reach out to me at any point in this process. If you have questions or if you have concerns, or anyone in this presentation, either Sam or Alex, we're all here to support you. So just be extra careful to review your notice carefully so no deadlines are missed. And then I'm going to turn to Sam for slide 24 on information regarding hearings.
Yep. If you could click a couple times again. And Paula, I see your questions. We're not ignoring them. We're just holding off till the end, and then we will answer questions. All right, hearing rights. So, as Aaron stated, everybody who receives a letter gets hearing rights. Hearing rights are rights to have a hearing with an administrative law judge and to allow employees to argue if the process was followed and whether it was followed to identify and notice the correct employees of a layoff. It's focused on the accuracy of the seniority chart and the notification process. What hearing rights are not. They are not to argue that the district should not make cuts, or that it has the money, or that it is incorrect about the budget. It is not to argue that your position is important and should be saved, because we consider all of the positions important and that they all should be saved. But unfortunately, we have to go through this process. So hearing rights are specifically about the process that we use to identify people and give notice to people. That's the specific part of the hearing process. And your union reps can give you even more details on this, as well as you're welcome to ask Aaron, myself, or Alex any questions about hearings. We have gone through them in the last few years. The hearings must be held by May 7th. We are planning on scheduling them in April, after spring break, and they must be held before the final notices can be issued. Next. All right, so we're going to go into answering questions, but we want to make sure that you're aware that we appreciate your time and your attention today. We will be also sending out a Google form to see if anybody else has any questions that they couldn't ask today in the chat, or if they need additional assistance. Plus, on the website, we have an updated FAQ that's already existing, that if you need to access that is also there as well. So I see that we have 3 questions so far. One is from Paula. When will the unions receive the seniority lists? So Aaron, do we have a date for that?
Yeah, so we sent out seniority lists a few weeks ago, and we are updating them every day as new people are onboarding, but I can definitely share the seniority list by next week, like the most updated list for both BCCE and Local 21.
All right.
Then ties and seniority, I believe those are indicated in the contracts. So typically when there's a tie in seniority, we go back to what I mentioned before so if 2 employees have the same seniority date in their current classification, we will go back to looking at their district seniority, which is when they first were onboarded as a regular employee in the district, and then use that date to help determine or to break that tie.
And if there is a reason further than that, we can always negotiate with the union for more specifics on how to resolve ties in seniority. Paula asked, in the past, the district had brought someone in from EDD to explain unemployment rights for staff who choose to accept the layoff and have no other options. Will that happen again? That wasn't given last year. We will look into that and see if we can do that again. We used to have EDD staff who worked at the adult school, so it was probably easier to do that. but we will see what we could do in terms of getting somebody to help explain the unemployment rights for our staff. We have another question from L. Gates. If layoffs go forward, when will health insurance coverage end? It ends on June 30th. So you always are paying in through the month to the month end. So it would end on June 30th. But if you have any specific questions, I suggest contacting the benefits department, as they can help you as well if you have any specific questions about specific types of insurance or any of that. Yes, you will be given an offer for COBRA if you are given one of the final notices. Chris asked if they could use COBRA for health insurance after a layoff. And yes, you will get an offer for COBRA insurance if you receive one of the final notices. Any other questions? Limited term and temporary positions are automatically released as part of this process. So if somebody is in a limited term or in a temporary position, they are released before we do the actual permanent layoffs. At the end of the school year in June, before the new fiscal year starts. Is when they are released. If not sooner. No problem, Paula. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. We will be sending out a form so that people can put questions on there if they didn't get a chance to ask them today. We will also be including the FAQ as well as a copy of the presentation from today and the video of the presentation from today, as well as sending out contact information to make sure that you know how to get a hold of myself, Alex, or Aaron. I hope that works for you, and thank you very much for attending today. And we wish you all the best through this process. And if you need support, please don't feel bad about reaching out and asking for it. We will provide whatever we can in terms of support to make sure that people feel like they know what's going on and how things will work. All right, thank you. Sarah, you could stop the recording.
Thank you, everyone.